Here's another method of performing the multiple shift. Let's say once again we're going to control the 4 queens. What you do here is you just riffle them with the thumb and place them into 4 different parts of the deck. Now instead of going right into a Hindu shuffle type of action, what you do is you push these into the pack like this. That looks pretty fair. You give it one simple cut, and sure enough, all 4 queens on the top. This is by Arthur Buckley, and all you have to do is make sure when you place the queens into the deck, you put them in the upper half. Now I'm going to put them in face up so that you can see what's happening. The 4 queens, remember, in the upper half of the deck. That's important. You want to have at least a few cards to play with underneath the lowermost of the 4 queens. Now what happens is you never push the queens flush into the deck. This is where that jogging action comes in. You push them in a little bit at an angle, like this. The index finger pushes them back further, so they start to become in-jogged. Then you straighten out. So in apparently one action of pushing them into the deck, you actually in-jog the 4 queens like this. Now the reason you wanted to have a few cards beneath the last queen is you take the cards into your right hand, the index finger pushes back on those lower cards, just like that. You strip out some of those lower cards along with the queens in one simple cut, and that brings everything up to the top. So this is the Arthur Buckley multiple shift. My good buddy Mr. Frank Zach, he came up with a lovely touch, the same basic idea as the Arthur Buckley control, but here you can control the 4 kings, the 4 aces, or the 4 queens to the bottom of the deck. Here's how it's done. Same idea, you put the queens into 4 different parts, but because you're going to control them to the bottom, what you're going to do is put them in the lower half of the deck like that. The same action, it looks like you square them into the deck. All you do now is you just cut some of the upper cards like this onto the table, the rest of the deck like that, and you have the 4 queens now on the bottom of the deck. This is basically the same as the Arthur Buckley version, but to get them to the bottom, you do it sort of backwards. Once again, the 4 queens, 4 different parts of the deck. Remember, in the lower half, when you push them in, you do the same jogging action as before, so they end up in-jogged. So now the 4 queens are in-jogged. What you do is you hold the deck by the sides, concealing the in-jog from the audience, and then you just take some of these upper cards, bring them back, and then you pull those cards back and you strip out the queens underneath them, and you do that as the first part of a table cut. When you complete the cut, of course, you end up with the 4 queens on the bottom.